Governor Meade, on behalf of the members of the legislature, I thank you for attending this joint session and for your message to us. Thank you very much. Members of the 61st Legislature, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I now present the Honorable Marilyn Kite, Chief Justice of the Wyoming Supreme Court.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Governor and Mrs. Meade, members of the 61st Legislature, elected officials, members of the judiciary, family, friends, and citizens of this great state. It is a true honor and privilege to speak to you today on behalf of the dedicated men and women of the Wyoming judiciary. And I thank you, President Anderson and Speaker Buchanan, for the invitation. As you all know, this is my first opportunity to speak to you as Chief Justice, and I am humbled and honored to do so. It is also the first time that many of you have sat in this legislature as members, and it is our new governor's first opportunity to share with us his vision of Wyoming's future. My memories of this chamber date back, and I am dating myself here, to Governor Hathaway's time, when I was lucky enough to serve as an Assistant Attorney General for the newly founded Department of Environmental Quality. And in that capacity, I had the amazing opportunity to assist the likes of Malcolm Wallop, Warren Morton, John Turner, Tom Strook, Dave Nicholas, Al Simpson, and many, many others, as they worked to craft a balance between the development of this state's resources and the protection of its many natural wonders. I was really impressed then, as I am today, with the dedication and willingness to serve that's exhibited by this legislature. One of the few true citizen legislatures left in this country. And we all appreciate the personal sacrifice that each of you make to serve our democracy. What we are doing here today, bringing together the three separate and independent branches of government, constitutes an important tradition, symbolizing a unity of purpose, and provides us with a brief moment to speak to each other and to the citizens of Wyoming, as well as to listen to each other and appreciate the importance of the respective efforts on behalf of this state. All of the members of the Wyoming judiciary wish you energy, wisdom, and endurance, as I understand the work ahead of you, as you work to face the challenges of our state at this point in our history. We also wish you, Governor Meade, great success in your tenure. You follow the trail of many wise and dedicated individuals who sacrificed their personal lives to devote limitless time and energy to leading the way for our state. You have the particular great fortune to have unmatched role models within your own family for how to lead with integrity, humility, wisdom, and humor. And we know that they are smiling down on this chamber today. Congratulations. I know you have a busy agenda and are anxious to get started, and I will not delay you long, as I have promised several of you. But I do want to report on some changes in the judiciary over the past year and highlight some issues facing our branch of government. I suppose one of the most obvious changes is that after 4 years of accomplished leadership, Justice Barton Voigt has passed that mantle on to me. Justice Voigt's efforts over the past 4 years are far too many to mention, not the least of which was overseeing the design and construction of our newly remodeled Supreme Court building and leading the court system into the 21st century with electronic filing and docket management. On behalf of all of us in the judiciary, I want to thank you, Justice Voigt, for your devotion to the job, your diligence, and your ever-present sense of humor. And through it all, he kept, I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, completely current on his case assignments, and he sometimes seemed to have the opinion written before the rest of us got back to the office. You might also notice a particularly happy and relaxed expression on his face. We have all come to know that as the expression of a former Chief Justice. I want to thank my other colleagues on the Supreme Court, Justices Golden, Hill, and Burke, for their friendship, their professional support, and the confidence and trust they have shown in me by electing me as Justice Voigt's successor. In 2010, we said farewell to some old friends and we welcomed some new. We were saddened by the passing of former District Judge Jim Wolfe of Sheridan and retired Supreme Court Justices Al Taylor and Richard Thomas, each having a significant impact on the law of this state as well as its citizens. District Judge Nancy Guthrie of Jackson retired after 15 years of service, and our judicial selection process resulted in Jackson Circuit Judge Tim Day being appointed to replace her. Experienced Jackson Attorney Jim Rada from the Teton County Attorney's Office was appointed to replace Judge Day. In Gillette, Circuit Court Judge Bill Edwards retired after serving 19 years in that very busy district. And Wendy Bartlett, an energetic and well-respected Gillette attorney from Campbell County Attorney's Office, was appointed to replace him. Most recently, District Judge Scott Scabdall of Casper announced his resignation after 7 years of service to pursue a career in the federal judiciary. Catherine Wilking, a respected Casper attorney with experience in civil and criminal law as well as juvenile issues, was appointed to fill that vacancy. Judge Wilking's formal installation will occur in a few weeks. As always, the Wyoming Judicial Nominating Commission performed efficiently, fairly, and free of political influence. As we watch with dismay the politicalization of the judicial selection in other states, we are once again thankful for the wisdom shown by this legislature and our citizens in the adoption of the constitutional amendment that established our method of judicial selection some 40 years ago. The Supreme Court and the Access to Justice Commission have been busy implementing the legislation this body adopted last year to provide funding through an increase in court filing fees to coordinate and support legal services for over 70,000 of our citizens that are financially eligible. We have had multiple statewide meetings. We have created a nonprofit corporation, the Wyoming Center for Legal Aid. We've appointed an initial board of directors for the center. We have drafted proposed bylaws and rules and reported our progress to this legislature as required by statute. The upcoming year will see much progress in this effort, and we are committed to fulfilling this body's intent to provide for justice for all of our citizens, not just those who can afford it. I want to take a minute or two to share with you some thoughts about the work of the Wyoming judiciary. As noted by Alexander Hamilton in Federalist Paper 78, the judiciary is the weakest of the three branches of government. We do not hold the power of the purse, and we cannot raise armies. We do, however, hold in our hands the lives and fortunes of thousands of Wyoming citizens every year, and we have the constitutional responsibility to protect the fundamental fabric of our society, the rule of law. We provide that level playing field that was envisioned by our founders, justice for all. In performing our work, we are facing some major challenges, and we're working hard to meet them. While statistics certainly don't tell the whole story, a quick look at our case filings shows that Wyoming courts are vibrant, busy, and getting their job done. The circuit courts have processed over 180,000 cases this past year, all of law enforcement's citations. And the district courts have handled over 20,000 cases. And I would like at this point to ask the circuit and district judges who are here with us today to stand and be recognized for all of their service to this state. I'm also pleased to report that those cases that do reach the Supreme Court are being handled promptly, and we continue to rank near the top nationally for the number of opinions authored on an annual basis. Despite this good news, we, like the other two branches of government, face extraordinary challenges. And today, I want to talk to you about two of those in particular. Number one is how to become more efficient internally as we perform our jobs. And number two is how to reduce the cost and delay in civil litigation that our private citizens are experiencing. So let me talk about the first issue. How do we manage an ever-increasing workload with static or declining revenues? We are all well aware that other states have not been as fortunate as we have financially, and many have seen draconian cuts resulting in closing some courts and thus denying those citizens access to justice. We are committed to assuring that we spend state resources responsibly and efficiently in order to assure that the citizens of Wyoming never face that prospect. Even though our budget represents only 2% of the entire state government budget, in response to decreasing revenues and in cooperation with the executive branch, we have worked to reduce any expenditures that aren't absolutely necessary. However, we don't have optional programs that can simply be eliminated. Our primary cost is for personnel to handle the caseload, the size of which is beyond our control. In recognition of that fact, we are examining our structure to see if we can become more efficient. The most obvious opportunity for enhanced efficiency is to utilize better the circuit courts. You know their jurisdiction is currently limited to misdemeanors and civil cases involving less than $7,000. That limit was set 15 years ago and needs to be significantly increased. That will allow us to take better advantage of those courts as well as to reduce the burden ever increasing on our district courts. In consultation with the Board of Policy and Administration as well as the circuit judges, we have proposed and the Joint Judiciary Committee supported an increase of that 15-year-old jurisdictional limit to $50,000. Senate File 15, which is a committee bill, will accomplish that change, and we urge your support of that legislation. While this change may have some impact on the clerks of both the circuit and district courts, we believe those impacts are manageable and should not be a reason for a less efficient judicial system. In addition to Senate File 15, we're working to improve our productivity through technology. Electronic filing and docket management is in place and functioning well in our court, in the Supreme Court, and we're about halfway through that effort in the district courts. As soon as that is complete, we will do the same in the circuit courts. We have installed public computer terminals in some circuit courts so that the public can electronically access non-confidential court dockets, and we plan to have the rest in place this year. You have generously and wisely provided us the funding necessary to accomplish our case management needs at the district court level, even in the face of a lot of budget reduction pressure, and recognizing that in the long run, we will reduce operating costs. And next session, we will be asking for more funds to do the same in the circuit courts. Now, we would like to claim credit for all of this progress, but honestly, we were a little late to this party. It's thanks to the leadership and the, dare I say, prodding from you that we have made this progress. Often, I'm sure you're not surprised to hear, institutions of government are resistant to change, and that is certainly the case with the judiciary. I learned recently that a cowboy who wants to participate in a roping event at Frontier Days can enter the competition, pay the entry fee, draw the steer or the calf, rope it, have the time immediately recorded, and the prize money calculated and paid the very same day, all electronically. Well, maybe not the roping part, but now I don't know about you, but no cowboy I know likes change very much. The good old days were plenty good enough for them. So if cowboys can join the electronic age, I think judges can too. Don't you agree? Now, there's another technological leap that will have the most impact on our day-to-day productivity, and that will be when law enforcement is able to issue electronic citations, and ultimately the fines can be paid electronically. The Highway Patrol has begun to implement electronic citations, or e-citations as we have called them, and they are responsible for a large part of our work. We have done the necessary work to allow the court's data system to accept their e-citations, and we understand they'll be ready to roll next summer, and we look forward to that day. Once a citation can issue electronically, the workload of our circuit court clerks will be substantially reduced. In some circuits, one full-time person is needed just to handle the paper and enter the data by hand. Although you don't have a specific request before you, we want to call your attention to the need to providing funding to cities and counties so their local law enforcement can acquire that e-citation capability as well. We understand that a recommendation for such funding was contained in a report from Governor Friedenthal's task force on impaired driving, and we hope the executive branch will bring such a proposal to you soon. The resulting increase in speed and efficiency in processing those citations will have an obvious positive impact on law enforcement's ability to deal with repeat offenders. We're also working with law enforcement to facilitate the payment of fines electronically, and in fact, just this week, Laramie County began to implement its program to receive fines online. When we can do this statewide, we will dramatically improve the collection rate of fines. And with an outstanding unpaid fines in the range of $10 million, the fiscal benefit of that advancement is obvious. So we hope you'll keep that issue on your radar, so to speak. Finally, on the technology front, most of our judicial districts have video conferencing capability, and we are all learning how to use that tool effectively. Many judges are using it for arraignments, depositions, and other proceedings, thus reducing the cost and risk of transporting prisoners to and from the jail, minimizing lost judge time and the expense of their travel, and allowing cases to move forward more quickly. Last month, we held a statewide Access to Justice meeting with participants from 6 different cities around the state. Everyone heard each other and saw each other clearly. We had participation from many that simply could not have attended in person. And also last month, we held our first Board of Judicial Policy and Administration meeting by video conference, and we saved $3,500 in hard travel expenses and about the same in the value of lost work time. And importantly, no lives were put at stake on our winter roads. So that's what we're doing to try to address efficiency internally. How do we address the growing discontent, our second challenge, with the cost and delay in civil litigation? Keeping in mind that our primary job is to provide fair and efficient justice to our citizens, we have initiated an effort to examine our own rules and procedures to see how we can do that better. We started by conducting a survey of Wyoming lawyers and judges, and not surprisingly, it showed that both believe that civil litigation takes too long and costs too much. The cause of that failure of the system is likely a combination of district court workloads in some areas and outdated and cumbersome rules. The growing demand on our district judges, particularly in the area of domestic relations and juvenile issues, can prevent them sometimes from resolving cases expeditiously. And by the way, that's another reason to support Senate File 15, which I discussed earlier, that will allow circuit judges to take some of that load. The rules of procedure that we follow today were adopted 72 years ago and have been modified very little since. The intent of those rules is clearly stated in Rule 1, quote, to secure the just, speedy, and inexpensive determination of every action. It is safe to say that we have failed too often to realize that intent. The Board of Judicial Policy and Administration and the Supreme Court have initiated several projects to begin to address these problems. Judge Norman Young from the 9th Judicial District and the current president of the District Court Conference is heading up an effort to examine those rules to see if they can be changed so that cases can move more quickly, especially smaller cases, and without unnecessary expense. Judge Keith Couts from the 8th District is heading up a group of judges and lawyers to address problems with domestic relation cases specifically. The circuit judges, under Judge Ha's leadership, are drafting rules for simplified procedures in circuit courts aimed at reducing cost and delay. I anticipate we will consider adoption of these rules in the near future and possibly propose statutory changes next year. As this summary of challenges, changes, and opportunities facing the third branch of government shows, our plate is full. The men and women of the Wyoming Judiciary are fully committed to continual improvement in the way we do business, and we invite you to visit your local courts and to see firsthand the quality of your judges. We urge you to continue to provide, as you have in the past, provide us the necessary resources to get our job done. And finally, with the tragic events in Arizona last weekend, we all, as public servants, increasingly feel the weight of our responsibilities. We cannot prevent all acts of anger and violence directed towards those who serve, but we can, and we must, maintain an environment in which institutions of our government and the individuals holding office within those institutions are respected. Our democracy depends on that respect. I thought it appropriate to close by quoting a former governor and senator whose service Wyoming enjoyed and whose legacy has produced our newest governor. In 1965, then Governor Clifford P. Hansen addressed the 38th Wyoming Legislature, and he said, "Let me observe that we are elected officials, and as such, we are but temporary custodians of trust, favor, leadership, and responsibility. We know the difference between right and wrong. We know that our sole duty is to give dedication and loyalty to the full public interest. History will deal with us. May the truth be that we gave our best." Thank you very much.
Chief Justice Kite, on behalf of the members of the legislature, I thank you for attending this joint session and for your message to us.